speaking to Gajan, who is currently going to be the Vice President of RCFTA. So, Gajan, to start off, could you tell us more about the Rotman Commerce Program and how Rotman Commerce Fintech Association has sort of organized events for Rotman Commerce students?
Yeah, of course. Well, I think if I were to describe Rotman Commerce Fintech Association, I'd like to say it's, the biggest technology group in Rotman Commerce. I think our main objective is to provide opportunities for undergrad students that are really interested in all sectors of technology, whether it's, you want to get into AI, whether or not you're interested in startups, whether you're interested in technology consulting. We try our best to provide opportunities for students to network in these industries, as well as get a better understanding of how they can, leverage their Rotman Commerce education to maybe get into these kind of industries.
Yeah, and for me personally, I've been part of the content team as a manager, and I've learned so much about technology and how it's used in finance. And by interacting with other team members, I think that's really helped me you know uh, learn about new perspectives and learn about new organizations using technology in their business. So coming back to RCFTA, could you tell me more about the vision for RCFTA in the coming year and what you all are looking to achieve? uh,
Yeah, of course. The way I like to describe our visions for our CFTA, I really like to split it up into, two main sectors. The value that we provide for Rotman Commerce students themselves, as well as the value that we provide for the students that work hard within the club. I think our CFTA does a fantastic job at providing external value, and I think our main objective is to just consistently keep providing those types of values when it comes to our case competitions, our networking event. One of our main objectives is to just sustain that level of ability to maintain great events and to provide well for students. But one thing that we want to change differently for this year is to really invest more in our club members. We feel as though we have such a great team, such a really hardworking, inspirational team, and we feel as though we want to provide them with as much value as possible. So this year we've really been focusing on providing, opportunities such as internal case competitions, internal networking events, and even like internal workshops, just to maximize the opportunity that students would get from being at RCFTA. I think it's important to put our stakes in both the people that work here as well as the people that are in Rotman Commerce in general.
Yeah, thanks so much for the overview of what you all are looking to do this year. So coming back to RCFTA, what has been the biggest challenge in your role as the vice president?
I think one of the biggest challenges, and I don't think this necessarily comes specifically to the vice president role, but more so in any role of leadership in this club, one of the biggest challenges is to be able to trust your own calls. It's very important as a leader, whether or not you're leading in a portfolio or leading the entire club, that you are able to adequately justify some of the reasons in which you are making certain decisions or taking certain actions. And at first, that can be very daunting, right? Because there's a lot of people in this club who can be somewhat dependent on the vision that you or some other leaders may have for the club. And I think it's just really important to just trust your abilities to make decisions. That's been at first was a little bit of a challenge to see, to really make sure that I truly trust that I know what's best, or that am putting my best foot forward for the club. That's definitely been one of the biggest challenges. But I think as time has progressed, I've definitely gotten a lot better. And I think with any natural leader, they come to finally fulfill what they, come to fulfill their role like more adequately.
Yeah, I think that's great, because, I think RCFT is one of the biggest short-term commerce clubs. And I think, being able to manage events and other portfolios must be challenging. But I think, getting to meet new people and understand their perspectives really sort of makes, the club so much more unique compared to the other clubs. So aside from RCFTA, could you tell us more about, the personal goals you're looking to achieve in your final year of university?
Yeah, definitely. I think personally for me, one of my biggest goals for my final year in university is to change my mentality with respect to the opportunities that come with university. I really feel as though I would like to keep more so of an open mind with some of the things that the university has to offer me. And that's just not in respect to my classes or my clubs. That's with respect to, going out, making some friends, right? Taking on the fun opportunities that can come with university. I think one of my biggest goals to summarize for my final year is to just really keep an open mind and just to enjoy the ride and to take any opportunity as it comes.
Yeah, and I think, with your last year of university, you'll be then, entering the corporate world. And, I think it's good that you're, balancing your life, with academics and, just, immersing yourself in the overall university experience, which is good.
Exactly.
And coming back to, another personal question, who is your role model and why do you look up to this person?
That's a great question. I guess it would be no one that would be known to anyone watching, but to me, my biggest role model is my father. I think, he's always provided such a strong and, a great perspective on how life should be taken. And, he's always been my rock and he's always shown me that I can achieve anything that I put my mind to. And I feel as though like I am super grateful to have someone like that in my life. And I think I'm very grateful to where I am in my life. And that I could definitely attribute to having a great role model like my father. So for me, it would be my dad because, I love him so much and he's just such a fun and amazing guy. Yeah.
And that's good to hear, having the family support, in your goals and, your own life can play a really important role in your, development as a person. So that's great to hear.
Mhm.
And what are some skills you've developed by, being a part of RCFT? You're currently the president, and then before that, you were director of events. So what skills, have you gained, through these experiences? And, uh, why would you ask someone to, sort of look into, being a part of RCFTA? What skills have you developed, which other students can also develop as future, members of the club?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I would like to think that my experience here was a little bit unique. And that's mainly because I came into the club luckily as, coming into as a leadership position off the bat, right? I started off as the director of events, and to me that was a very daunting experience, right? To start off in such a big club with a leadership role, especially in a portfolio that is so connected to the students. I felt as though there was a big weight on my shoulder, and I felt as though I had to take on all the responsibilities that came with the role itself. But as time progressed, I learned that it's really important to trust the people around you, and that genuinely the people around you can bring to the table something that you may not be able to bring. And if you, as a leader, are able to identify everyone's individual skills, you can make a team strive and you could really maximize your opportunities. I felt as though at the beginning, I was very much wanting to do everything on my own because I felt as though that's what it took to be a leader. But throughout my journey and now as a vice president, I find the importance of, being able to trust the people around you and identify what they are able to do and what they, are, what they're good at and what they'd like to do. And to me, that's been one of the greatest skills that I've learned. And I think it's very transferable in the real world in the sense that when I'm working in a team or when I'm working at my internship, for example, you know, I'm constantly exposed to different teammates. I'm constantly exposed to different types of teams. And it makes me feel a little bit at ease knowing that I can trust other people's skills because they're there for the same reasons I am. And that's because whether they care for it or whether they want to get the work done. So yeah, I think that was definitely one of the biggest skills or one of the biggest takeaways from this club and from my experience here.
Yeah, speaking from my experience as well and reflecting on it, as I've been able to collaborate with so many, people, when it comes to organizing content and media. And I think, being a part of RCFT as a manager has really helped me, make new connections and, reach out to new people and also make new friends. And I think, the RC Fintech Summit last year, which you would have probably, headed in terms of, organization planning and, getting corporates to come in and, have these conferences has been really helpful, not only to me, but, to many of my friends. So I think it's great that RCFTA is, also introducing networking nights and, first year programs, as I can see in the website currently, we have the RC Open coming up. And we also have the FinStart program, which is going to be
Yeah.
set up soon. And I think it's really important for students to at least get involved and will really help them outside of just academics. So my next question is, you currently, as you mentioned, you're interning at President's Choice Financial. So what drew you to this position and this company?
Well, when I was interviewing, I really got a chance to, look at the type of managers that would be, overseeing me. And upon doing my different interviews, a lot of them were surrounding finance. So when I was selecting which one I wanted to do, I wasn't really too concerned with the roles in which I would be playing because I knew it'd be very similar across all the options. It was more so about the team I would be working with throughout the summer. And when I interviewed with my manager, my current manager, I noticed that we had a very strong connection and that his management style really adhered to the type of work that I wanted to be doing for the summer. He was very willing to provide me with autonomy and provide me to lead my own projects. And when I had heard that I would be able to have such autonomy in my internship, I was immediately drawn to that internship. And I'm very glad with the decision I've made because my team is fantastic. They're all super nice and they all are very supportive with the current projects that I'm working on at PC Financial. I feel as though I'm really able to make an impact on the company just because they give me so much freedom with the projects that I'm working on for the team. So for me, what drew me to the company was my manager and the eventually it's the team that I would be working with.
And I think it's great that, you've touched upon this because, today there are many organizations which sort of want to develop new products. And, there's a lot of focus and emphasis on entrepreneurship within the organization. So I think it's great that you're able to sort of take on projects as opposed to, just working at the company and completing tasks. And I think in terms of your overall development, I think even RCFTA, the stuff you learn through the conferences and networking nights would have also played a very integral role. So
Definitely.
I'm quite happy that you've been able to do that, at your internship. So coming back to, the internship application and, interview process, what advice would you have for students, who are looking to apply for internships, for the summer of 2024? Are there any tips and tricks, which you would like to share?
That's a good question. I think it's very specific to where you are, specific to your career. Some people may argue that applying in maths is good for the beginning of your career. Some people may argue that you want to specifically concentrate on different internships. Generally speaking, I feel as though when you apply with intention and when you apply to specific companies and have planned it way ahead of time, you naturally have a better chance of making it to the next step. And that when I say plan ahead, I mean, networking with the right people, accumulating the right experiences ahead of time, um, attending the right info sessions. I think when you move with intention for very specific internships, you're naturally more inclined to get those internships. It's easier to say when you have the experiences on your back. But once you get there, I definitely would not recommend the mass applicant strategy that a lot of people use, especially since that you're going to be applying with the same resume, you're going to be applying with the same cover letter if you're applying in mass, and naturally there are going to be people who have specifically catered their resume and cover letter to that company, and as a result you're just not going to be able to make it through the door. So although it's tough, although it's very time consuming, it's important to have those companies, aside from your mass applications, have those companies that you have had an eye on for a while and have had done research on how to get there and who to talk to. When you have done the research on months in advance on how to get to a specific place, you're differentiating yourself from 90% of the applicants because majority of your competitors are naturally people who have mass applied. So just by doing so, just by thinking months or 6 months in advance, you're definitely differentiating yourself. So I think if I were to give my best advice, I would say, depending on where you are in your career, both mass applications as well as intentional applications are extremely important. Yeah, that's kind of like a general advice I'd give for internship applications.
I think it's, I've been going through, many events and, networking nights. And I think, the whole emphasis on being able to curate your cover letter based on, the job description is really important. And, since many students will be, looking for internships, they'll be applying to maybe 50 to 75 positions, doing that mass application with the same cover letter. I think, yeah, the important point you noted about, being able to curate your application, maybe send 15 applications, but very strong ones. I think that's a great strategy which students can sort of implement
Yeah.
to ensure that, they're able to stand out because you'll have so many other competitors just sending in applications
Yeah.
for the
And
sake
it's
of it.
It's
Yeah,
so just to add on to that, sorry to interrupt.
no
It's very
way.
true, the statement where people say it's who you know, not what you know. Me personally, a lot of the experiences that I've been able to accumulate have been because I was able to network with them or I had messaged them on LinkedIn. Um, like as someone with me, for example, with the who doesn't have the best GPA, it's I kind of have to differentiate myself in that regard. So if I were to give additional advice, it would definitely to be sign up for every networking event, mass message people on LinkedIn because LinkedIn is one of the greatest tools you could ever ask for, whether it's just for a coffee chat, whether you want to just ask some questions, just getting comfortable talking to people and networking with people by putting yourself in those uncomfortable situations. That's going to take you so much further and you're going to naturally make connections on the way. So if I were to give another piece of advice, it'd be to really utilize LinkedIn and to attend as many networking events as you can because people are the way into the companies that you want to get into.
Thank you so much for your inputs, when it comes to the recruitment process. So could you tell us more about how RCFT has specifically helped you understand the field of finance and technology?
Yeah, definitely. I think RCFTA really exposed me to the world of startups. It was something very specific that I wasn't very familiar with, but there is an entire world in which fintech is so applicable to everyone's lives. And I think RCFDA, when it comes to their events, when it comes to, the information that we provide in case competitions and stuff like that, I've really been exposed to the companies that are working really hard to make it in fintech. There is a huge world out there in technology that isn't of the big five, for example, or of the technology consulting firms, the big ones, right? There is an entire field of opportunities of mid to low tier startup companies that are really trying to break through. I think there's some fantastic opportunity there, and I had no idea. But coming into RCFDA, I was exposed to so many people who wanted to start their careers there, right? Because it's such a rigorous and it's such a high, intense, very amazing learning environment to be a part of a startup. I think if I were to take anything away from learning about fintech, it would be about the world of startups and the world of startup technology. I think it's one of the most interesting fields.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I've seen most of these events organized by RCFTA mainly, target, having recruiters coming in from the smaller companies, and they have a much larger scope to grow compared to, a company that's already, developed in terms of its market share. So, the things you would do or your positions you'd have would be so much more, time consuming, but also rewarding. So I think it's
Exactly.
great you mentioned, how RCFTA has really helped you, engage yourself in the world of startups because, you never know if you work at a small startup, it could be the next, $1 billion, competitor with these big finance or technology companies. So it's great that you touched upon how RCFT has specifically helped you with understanding so many new startups developing in Toronto specifically. So thanks for talking about taking us through your position at RCFT and your overall experiences. And yeah, thank you so much for your time. I think this would really help all students looking to sort of learn more about finance and also learn more about RCFTA specifically. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me. I had a great time.
Yeah.